Psalm of David. I will sing of your love and justice to you, Lord. I will sing praise. I will be careful to lead a blameless life. When will you come to me? I will conduct the affairs of my house with a blameless heart. I will not look with approval on anything that is vile. I hate what faithless people do. I will have no part in it. The perverse of heart shall be far from me. I will have nothing to do with what is evil.
On the day Samuel came to anoint me as king, my big bros grumbled, but the Lord did his thing. I took the crown of Israel, made Jerusalem my own, the greatest king in history. Yeah, bad to the bone, bad to the bone, bad to the bone. Bad, 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 bad to the bone. That big old Goliath stood 9 feet in the air. He cursed the God of armies, but I didn't even care. I grabbed my trusty sling, loaded with a stone. I went for a headshot, 'cause I'm bad to the bone, bad to the bone, bad to the bone, bad, 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 bad to the bone. I'm a master musician. I write songs of praise. I dance before the covenant in a holy, joyful days. I'm a warrior poet, sitting on my throne. I'm the world's greatest star. Yeah, I'm bad to the bone, bad to the bone, bad to the bone, bad, 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 bad to the bone.
Wow, he's bad to the bone. You know that Dustin is starting seminary? He's beginning the first year of seminary on his road to becoming a pastor himself. It's exciting. Back to school for you, too. Bad to the bone. I will sing of your love and justice to you, Lord. I will sing praise. I will be careful to lead a blameless life. When will you come to me? The words of the poet, singing the praises of God, harp in hand, the epitome of faithfulness, the little shepherd boy who outbraved the bravest, who took down the giant and made his family proud, the man who unites a kingdom, the greatest king of all, David. Everybody loves David. So beloved, he gets a star, and forever after, people will wear it around their necks as a symbol of unity. David, the perfecter of Israel, father of the wise, ancestor of Jesus, David. Everybody loves him. So maybe one guy, maybe two. Uriah, you know him? No? Back in June, on Father's Day actually, we read the whole intro to the Gospel of Matthew, and it was a whole bunch of names telling the lineage of Jesus. Some names we knew, some names we didn't. You might recall that Jesus linked back through great king was Solomon, whose parents, as Matthew described, were David and the wife of Uriah. Interesting, isn't it? Not so much that why Solomon took the throne, but that his mother was described as the wife of somebody other than David. But suddenly this guy's crown's looking a little crooked. Well, I mean, the thing is, she enticed him, really. It wasn't his fault. David was merely walking atop the roof of his palace, like you do, when his eyes caught sight of a woman bathing. And she was beautiful, stunning, long hair, supple skin, gorgeous. And her eyes were just calling to him. Why was she bathing so close to the palace? She was practically throwing herself at him. Like anybody was going to believe that she was bathing in a secluded place. I mean, come on. What kind of a wall was that surrounding her? Like it was an accident? She didn't think that somebody was going to be looking from above. Didn't matter that she had a husband. I guess she didn't think about that when she decided to lure David in. Or maybe she and her husband had both tried to entrap the king. Here, David, the beloved king, the hero, God's chosen, he would never try to steal another man's wife. And he certainly would have been spying on a woman while she bathed. Of course not. He only sent for her because she had already sent for him. And she was obviously a shady lady. How would David have even known that she was married, right? Or maybe Uriah was clueless to the plan. The moment she reeled David in, she realized she had to get rid of her husband. So she told the king she was pregnant. Classic move. That's what you do, right? That's how you trap a man down, lock him in. She was probably the originator of this move. So David took care of her problem and took care of Uriah, an easy obstacle to overcome. It was that seductress temptress that lured in our passionate, powerful king, and that was not his fault that he succumbed to temptation. After all, it was David who penned these promissory words, "I will conduct the affairs of my house with a blameless heart." Did you hear that? Wait, listen closely. Me. Me what? Me too? Too. Matthew didn't even give her a name. Me too, she says. But she did have a name, and she had a story. I don't really know her story. I've heard enough of stories similar from women who've also said, me too. She had a name. It was Bathsheba. You might not know her whole story, but let's take a look at what we do have from the 2 Samuel chapter 11. The story begins in the spring of the year, the times when kings go out to battle. And King David loved battle, right? This guy was a young kid begging to get on the battlefield. He was so much so that he delivered lunch to his family members, begging to fight the great Goliath. Of course, he was out to battle. Except he's on the rooftop. Seems a little strange that the greatest warrior of all stayed home. So here he is, sending the kings out to battle, but David heads to the rooftop to scope out a different kind of conquest. Now that he's top dog, he can send others to battle for him. And so one afternoon, it says he rises from his couch. Wait, he'd been lounging around on the couch? Well, don't worry about that. But that's how he spots her. The truth is, we don't really know what Bathsheba knew. We don't know if she knew David could see her. We don't. We don't know that she was trying to be seen. We don't know that she was trying to entice anybody. The text doesn't tell us any of that. So when we're back in the text, we've got David, the great king who's at home on a couch, rising to look down into a women's bathing area. Interesting. And then it tells us what David does next. First he looks, and then he asks, "Who is that?" Someone tells him, and then David sends for her. And this is where we need to notice something that has in so many ways been hiding in plain sight. For centuries, people have looked at Bathsheba through David's eyes. And in doing so, we've inherited his gaze. We've taken this view of her and made it about her character. Convenient. She was beautiful, therefore she was seductive. She was bathing, therefore she was inviting him. He wanted her, therefore she must have wanted him. What that is the very description of the male gaze. It takes a woman being seen and turns it into a woman wanting to be seen. She didn't lure David onto the roof. Logistically, how could she have? David used his view from above to look over a wall. David wants to treat Bathsheba's bathing as an invitation. Look at me, David. I'm naked. But it's such a misogynistic reading. She's bathing. She's not auditioning. The text tells us that she's performing a ritual of purification. Bathsheba wasn't giving him come hither looks. Taking a bath. David was looking. That's the first invasion. The problem isn't that Bathsheba was visible. The problem is that David believed his power gave him access to what he saw, permission to see it. And suddenly we're not talking about a man who just accidentally happened to see a beautiful woman. We're talking about a king who believed that seeing something gave him the right to have it. The object of his desire. She's literally objectified, so much so that Matthew can't even use her name. And so she disappears as a person. It's like she got swallowed up by this story, squashed. So when David asks, he does ask, who was that woman? The answer was, well, that's Bathsheba, daughter of Eliam, wife of Uriah. In other words, this is a woman with a name and with relationships. He now knows who her father is. He knows who her husband is, but he doesn't care. And because women were basically property of the men of their lives, she's defined by them. So David demonstrates not only the obvious lack of respect for her, but also lack of respect for her father and her husband. Poor Uriah. This is a terrible story for him. In fact, after sending for her, taking her, he sends her back home. And his plan is to just play off this pregnancy, get Uriah and Bathsheba together, and nobody's going to know the difference. Only it didn't work out that way. So then he thinks, okay, next plan. I might get a son out of this, so he disposes of the husband. It is beyond shady. This is the epitome of our series. We've got a bad boy of the Bible here today. Look at him, he's right center. crooked crown. He then instructs his commander, Joab, to move Uriah to the front lines and then tells everybody else to fall back so he gets killed. He plays it so that it looks like this guy died at the hands of his enemy when he basically delivered him to the enemy so that they could do his killing for him. How messed up is this, you guys? Seriously. But makes David look squeaky clean. Except that we know he wasn't. David thought he managed the story. Bathsheba was back home. Uriah was dead. She could mourn for an appropriate amount of time. The kingdom kept running. Nobody was asking any questions. The hero remained the hero. That's how power usually works, right? Powerful people don't just commit harm. Sometimes they get other people to do it for them. They don't just get ahead of the story. They actually control the narrative. They decide whose version gets told. They decide whose voice gets heard, and therefore whose will be believed. They decide who gets to be remembered as the hero and who gets to be remembered as the temptress. And for a very long time, that is actually how Bathsheba was read. Matthew's refusal to say her name. It makes it feel like she's just disappeared. Looks like David's gotten away with all of it. He's enjoyed being a bad boy. I mean, he's kind of the real braggart that Dustin makes him out to be. Yeah, I did it. I did it all. I'm bad to the bone. Except that even though he could control an army, even though he could control the strings, even though he made the story happen, he could decide whether Bathsheba was a seductress or a wife depending on his whim, except that he could kill anybody who might know the truth and told him. He couldn't escape Nathan. Enter the prophet. Now, he does something masterful. He doesn't outright accuse David of what he's done. He tells a little story about a rich man with a bunch of sheep and a poor man who only has one little ewe. And the rich man takes the poor man's lamb. And David, who's still somewhere deep inside, there's that little shepherd boy, he is outraged at this story. This is horrible. What an injustice, he cries. That man deserves to die. So Nathan knows that dear old David knows what injustice looks like. I mean, he's incensed by it. But what David doesn't suspect is that Nathan turns the story around and then looks David square in the eyes to declare, you are the man. Not you're the man. You're the thief. He abused the situation. He abused his power. And it sounds to me like he also sexually abused Bathsheba. I did not read consent in the story, did you? But here's the thing, he's still David, this poet, the shepherd boy with unexplained courage, David the giant killer, David the man who loved God, and David the bad guy. So hard to reconcile this behavior. The same behavior that cast Bathsheba as the manipulator or the willing participant, that well-worn trope that we will hear again and again in our beloved Bible, where the woman is a seductress. She's the one. She's the adulterer. This to make David look like he was less of a bad guy. He's a monster. The greatest king of Israel. He's a hero. He's a scoundrel. A justice seeker. He's a rapist. David, king of Israel, reminds me of Saint Cesar Chavez, patron saint of the farm worker. What do we do with these men who do good things and horrible things. I have been struggling all year with this revelation about Cesar Chavez, and that our beloved Dolores Huerta, who helped build the farm worker movement, confessed that she kept her silence about the abuse that she and other women suffered because she feared that telling the truth about Cesar would hurt the movement they built and the farm worker themselves who were inspired by him. Think about that. The movement was so important. And it was. Dolores knows that's true. This movement was important and continues to be important. So much so that they had to carry the cost of protecting it. Suddenly, we have all the same questions as we have with David in the ancient world. What do we do when a person who did something terrible is also the person who did something extraordinary? What do we do with the heroes whose stories don't fit neatly in a stained glass picture frame? Do we throw out everything they ever did? Or do we make excuses for what they did because we need them to remain our heroes? Do we remain silent in the face of injustice? These are real questions. People must be asking. We must be asking ourselves. I think there is a way, and I think we see it here. We tell the story. We tell as much of the story as we can find out. We tell the truth about the good that they did, and we also tell the truth about the harm that they did. And we refuse to make the people who they harmed disappear so that we can keep our loving hero. We give Bathsheba her name back. We don't write her story as though she consented, and certainly not as though she seduced. And we celebrate the farm worker movement. It matters. The injustice it fought and continues to fight is real, and the good that came from it is real. And the harm that Chavez is accused of doing is very real. One truth doesn't erase another. How do we hold it? I have to admit, I'm struggling with it. I am not there. I'm not coming to you telling I've got it all figured out. I have a really hard time with this revelation about Cesar Chavez, and I am stuck with the hypocrisy of this biblical bad boy of ours. It's really hard for me not to put both of them in prison and take away the key. Maybe that goes back to the simple reality that we've been holding all summer long, that we like having villains. Week after week, we just keep coming back to this, that villains make it easier for us to be us. We know what to do with them. We can point at them. We can condemn them, and we can make sure that we're standing on the right side. All of a sudden, everybody shifted to this side. What do we do? David makes it harder for us because he's not just the man who does this terrible thing. He also wrote the words that we sing the 23rd Psalm. It's attributed to him. The shepherd, the giant slayer, the king, the man God loved, and the man that Nathan saw and held accountable. All these things. And that makes me really uncomfortable. Sure, it makes you a little uncomfortable too, right? Having this complicated, powerful, gifted, faithful, broken human being who did something terrible, like Chavez, who did something awful. And that hypocrisy is really hard for me to hold. And the thing that makes it so much worse is that David is sitting there saying these beautiful things. I will conduct the affairs of my house with a blameless heart. And yet, this guy who believed his own righteousness was also doing harm. He's not just a hypocrite, worse. But maybe we need stories like this. Maybe we need them to remind us that we can call the shady out, but also to remind us that we rarely know the whole story. We have to listen for the voices who don't speak, whose perspectives never get shared. We need Nathan the prophet. The world needs more Nathans. Honestly, this is why I think this church is so important. Called to be a prophetic voice, to be brave enough not only to see something, but say something. People who can speak truth in love. We need more of that. We also need to celebrate the humility of the hero, to be a humble hero. That's what Micah 6:8 tells us, right? Our favorite passage here at IUCC. Humility matters. This story can do a lot for us because it invites us to see more deeply. It invites us and reminds us that every story has multiple perspectives, multiple interpretations. It reminds us that as people of faith, we're called to ask ourselves questions about the situations that we find ourselves in. Not just ancient, so very present. What part of the story isn't being told? Whose story am I not hearing? Whose humanity have I reduced to a footnote? Has somebody been silenced? Whom have I made responsible for someone else's choices? And perhaps the hardest question of all, where might I be the hero of the story that someone else is experiencing very differently? Because David was a hero, and David was a scoundrel. David loved God. David abused power and people. David wrote beautiful words while doing harmful things. All of it's true. And what makes the story so uncomfortable is what makes it so necessary. Because we can't just come here and sing our songs of praise. We can't just show up to church on Sunday morning and rest on the laurels of our good deeds. You don't get a permission slip when you leave. Now you've done it. Good for the week. No, we have to go deeper. We have to move beyond our simple stories and go beyond our comfort zones. It's so easy for us to fall for worshiping the hero and condemning the villain and then done with it all. Nathan does something that's so much harder. He looked deeper and he saw more and invites us to do the same. Take a second look and a third look and hold that uncomfortable space. What he did, so David could take a good look at himself. We can't stop looking at the injustices in our world. There are many. But we also cannot protect heroes who have done bad things. We have to call justice out. We have to listen to the parts of the story that might not be readily shared, the parts that may have intentionally been buried, and tell the stories. We have to listen for the whispers. Bathsheba and all the women whose stories have been silenced, or Uriah, who has only got a little tiny piece of his story. All the stories of those who've been pushed to the margins because somebody else's story seemed more important. Say the names. Look for their faces. Hear their words. Listen. Always more to the story. And so, brothers and sisters, siblings in Christ, go out into the world. You're good. Go out into the world where there's so much injustice. Where so much is buried. Eyes are turned blind. And look. Listen, be present to share the love and carry the light. Amen.